Hey everyone, I put together a default template for Organic House in Ableton Live 12.1. And the reason I put together this template is because I wanted to save time and I wanted to have a template that I can just load up with all my favorite sounds and just get into the material, get into producing. And I thought instead of just giving you a rundown and an explanation video, I created a track from scratch. And what started out as just an 8-bar loop actually ended up turning into a full track. So before I start the video, I just wanted to let you know that I have the default template with the sounds included for free, the link down below. And if you want the full finished template from today's video, you can grab that on my Patreon page. The timestamps to this video are included, so feel free to jump around anytime. Let's dive in. All right, I'm going to start with the kick over here. Just enable the kick pattern, the MIDI, which I already have set up. Same for the hi-hat. Just enable. It's a quicker workflow this way. Doing a bit of rough mixing here. Setting the tone, the decay. Same for the shaker. Sounds quite similar, doing some panning. Main hi-hat, just an additional layer, looking for random sounds, putting them in, adjusting decay, sustain, gives it a more acoustic layer. Then I have a hi-hat drum rack, just some extra layering, gives it a wider and fuller hi-hat sound. Every hi-hat has its own character in every single track and layer. That one sounded too acoustic for me, so I'm trying to mix it down a bit. Doing some mixing on the side. Now to the clap. I'm going to start with the clap rack, which is the clap drum rack. Enable this clap over here. Find one that matches the groove. I like this one. Copy paste, add an additional layer. Do some rough mixing. Take these, dial down the velocity. Adjusting decay, sustain. Enabling the stereo, which is a line delay, and shifter to pitch down the claps and add some width. I love shifter for this type of stuff. I'm going to go for a top loop just to see if something matches my current selection. Going through Noire, top loops there. Found this one that I kind of liked. Dial down the volume and select a loop. I'm looking for just a loop here. Transients, forward transient, make it snappy. Go for 16th. Sounds kind of solid. Already grooving, you can see my head wobble. Now I'm thinking of the percussion. What to do? Go for some kind of a textural percussion loop here from Noire again. This one sounds good because of the bongos. It's more of a clearly defined percussion phrase. But then again, I'm looking for just a loop because I want to make it my own. Setting the right loop length, messing with the pitch, beats, forward transient, dial it down a bit. So we're getting more of that percussion phrase. Now I'm automating the clip gain envelope in the envelope tab, which emphasizes just the first half of the percussion loop. Looking for a shaker now. This one sounds good. Chuck it in there. Yeah, and it adds to the groove. It glues the groove together very nicely. Now some more percussion. This time I want to chuck it into a simpler. Put it into slice mode. Create a MIDI clip. And look for some extra percussion phrasing. Make sure the placement is good so it matches the rest of the groove. Kind of giving it a call and response type vibe here. Messing with the volume. Splitting the clip, pasting it over. Filter delay. I'm looking for a filter delay. First I chucked in the echo but ended up not liking it. There we go, filter delay. Much more interesting for sound design because you get 3 bands, mid, low, and high. Pitch down the sound. Now it's time for the percussion drum rack. Accidentally clicked the wrong shortcut and opened up the mixer there. No worries. Let's create a MIDI clip. Now I'm just going for some random perks. These are my favorite percussions. Added them to a drum rack for easy accessibility. Some conga phrase here, always quite nice for organic house. Honestly, no plan here. Just going for what sounds good to my ear. Add a tom. Just correct the placement here. Ooh, nice. You can see my head is still wobbling, so that's a good sign. Duplicate that tom over. Now take this whole entire phrase and loop it. It's a 4-bar phrase. I'm just looking for some variation. I like this as a clap, this rim shot here. Sometimes happen that a percussion fits well as a clap layer. Now some additional toms here. Just to give it some variation. There we go. Now I'm just messing with the drum sampler parameters. Ended up not really getting anything useful, but just tried to have a bit of fun here. Yeah, I need to get used to the new drum sampler, to be honest. Now my favorite percussion VST, I'm going to load that into the next track. Currently it's Stylus by Omnisphere. No, not Omnisphere, Spectrasonics, the same people from Omnisphere. They have like this old vintage groove plugin that I sometimes use for percussion. Sometimes you can get some very organic percussion acoustic sounds from here. I like the default presets a lot. Just testing out some loops. It's kind of annoying that you always have to click host sync each time. But it is what it is. Muting out the shaker from the kit. AKA the cabasa, which is also some kind of a hi-hat shaker type thing. Making sure that it's more centered. Creating a new audio track and making sure that resampling is enabled in the input section of that audio track and record. See how organic it sounds? Lovely little layer. Chop out the rest, make sure it's looped accordingly so I can just drag out the clip like this. Delete the stylus layer. So we're just working with the audio now. Pitch it down. Loop it up to make it my own. I don't like the timing here. So what I'm going to do is Command A, Command U to quantize everything. Make sure that it's on the grid. Forward transient, dial down the amount to get a bit more of a snappy feeling. Envelope, and automate the clip gain, which I just clicked. Get some more interesting phrasing and allow the percussion to breathe a bit more. messing more with the pitch here. Command S to save the project. Cool. Just quickly listening to what I have so far. New audio track. Just looking for, I think, some new loops here. Yeah, some more textural stuff. That fills out the background, you know, gives it a bit of noise. Add some low cut. Make sure the loop plays to the end. Just testing out different pitches here, different loops. Are my eyes scratchy here? And I'm just looking for more inspiration. Just some layers to an already full sounding groove just to get a few extra % out of the groove. And it's fun. It's fun to just look through loops. Drag and drop, happy accidents. Yeah. Just select the loop. Same thing, click on envelope. And in this case, I just like the clap. So what I'll do is automate the clip gain so it just emphasizes that clap. Take that envelope, paste it over. I don't know why, I just ended up liking this clap here. Freeze and flatten the track so we just get to see the clap layer so it doesn't confuse us. Messing with the pitch here. Forward transient, dial down the amount. Align delay to make it stereo. Offset the left and right channel a bit, and it gives it some stereo width. Okay. And I ended up mixing down the clap quite a bit. I feel like this layer isn't really doing that much, to be honest, but I still left it in there. Making the shaker a bit louder, the hi-hat, just to test out if the hi-hat should pierce more through the mix or not. Just doing some mixing on the side. Whatever makes my head wobble. Looking for some more percussion, as it seems. Or I don't know what I'm looking for here. Yeah, some tribal stuff. Yeah, I'm looking for some fills. Stuff that just I can throw in every few bars. Just applying some low cut to it. And I'm hitting Option Shift and scrolling within the clip to select different parts of it. And now I'm looking for filter delay once again. Makes it a bit more interesting rhythmically. Copy paste it over. Just little nuances for the groove, right? Paste one at the end as well. Repeat that for another loop. I'm duplicating the track here so I don't have to load the filter delay again. Just different settings, different timing. Copy paste, Option drag. A bit less highs on this one, more in the background. Okay, now I seem to be going on with the pads. is one of my favorite parts because it allows me to transition from the groove to more of a melodic section, and it gives it a certain emotion. The pad is quite important which one you choose because it determines the overall vibe of your track. Yeah, this one is the one that resonated with me, the pad in A major. Major meaning that it's quite happy. Minor would be more melancholic. You see I'm using it in a simpler, so I can play it on my MIDI keyboard instead of dragging in the loop. And oh, the padifier makes it sound good. You can see I was really happy here. Padifier is basically just a rack that I created with reverb and filters. You can see that I'm creating a loop with a bit of fade time to make sure that it loops seamlessly that little section of the sample. Yeah, and then play the right key that resonates. Yeah, I just hit the, I think it's called the record select button. I'm not sure, but it records the entire MIDI that you played in without having to record. It remembers the last saved note that you played on the record arm track. Changing the pitch on some of the percussion here, making sure that the warp mode is set to forward transient so it's really snappy. I figured that this loop over here, the shaker, doesn't really fit to the vibe that I'm going for, so I just deleted it. According to my ear, it just sounded a bit too much. I'm adjusting the shaker decay time here for shorter kind of 8th note hi-hat. Oots, oots. And as it seems, I'm looking for some more loop inspiration. Perhaps for some more acoustic sounding drums. You never know when you might get a inspiration from one of the loops. So just keep on dragging and dropping loops throughout the creative process, maybe as layers. I like this one. I'm going to pan it to the left. And I'm going to look for another loop that I can pan to the right. Just testing out, trial and error. This is also a great way to train your ear. To pay attention to the sounds, be able to identify them within the mix, try out different pitches. It's really just trial and error. Yeah, but I keep searching because I'm not so happy with the loop. This one intrigued me because it sounds very loose and organic. But still not 100% the way I want it, so I keep looking. This one's cool. I was kind of intrigued by the low end of this loop. So I put it into the bassline channel, gave it the color accordingly, and I just narrowed down on that low end to see if I can extract any value, maybe as a tom groove from this loop here. So I duplicate it, freeze and flatten the first layer, so I get to see just the sub within the loop. And then I hone in on it, decreasing the grid size here, chopping out certain parts. And with Command X, I'm using that to delete instead of hitting the delete button because it's quicker. Now I'm just going into a little bit of a sound design world here, applying some limiting to make sure that the sound doesn't peak so much, but is still loud enough. I still see a couple of peaks in the sound, so what I'm doing is going for a glue compressor to really tame the sound a bit more. Yeah, see how those peaks are now gone? Trying to mess with the pitch. I'm really trying to force this one into the track. Not really fully liking the way it sounds, but I'm testing it with the entire groove now. Never mind. Consolidate this, duplicate it over. Yeah, the reason I don't like it because this is not really noticeable. Trying to pull up the pitch, mess with the warp mode, see if I can make it somewhat noticeable. Okay, loading on a utility to mono it. The space you usually want to have in the middle, which is why I mono it. You can see that I'm not really astonished by the sound here. Reduce the frequency of it. Pull it down into the effects channel. I'm like, nah, not so great. You know what? Fudge it. Let's delete it. Happens all the time, you know? Trial and error. Sometimes you get little miracles. Sometimes it doesn't work. Belongs to the process. So I just go for the sub bass. You see I did the same. I recorded a couple notes and I hit that record select, and I don't know what the button's called, but it records your MIDI without you having to press the record button. So you can just record capture. I think it's called capture. And right now I'm just fitting everything to the scale, which is E. I set it to E minor by accident. The scale is E major. By ear, I'm just readjusting a few of the notes here. Yeah, the sub bass preset is also included in Ableton Live, which is called Hip Hop Sub Bass. I love using it for organic house. Messing with the rack here, the glide. It doesn't really do much in this case. I wanted it to glide down, like do. But it still sounded good. Make sure that the sidechain applies so it ducks whenever the kick plays, or the sidechain trigger in this case. Sounds good. Now that loop from before, I'm like, screw the low end, let's try to make this work as a top loop. So I'm putting it with the other percussion. Don't need any of that low end, just the top end. Going for a reduce ambience effect to take out some of the transients and the reverb in the sound. Really cool effect. It's like a transient shaper. Putting it through some reverb that I have on one of my send and returns, On return channel A, there's a small room reverb that I'm sending this track to. And I'm like, okay, while I'm at it, let me try it for this sound too. Track B is a large reverb. And I'm like, nah, let's go for A, return channel A, which is the small room reverb for this percussion. Percussion I usually want to put into small room reverbs, not some massive reverb. Reverb. A little bit of a vibe here. Vibe check. Seeing if it... I duplicated the pad and I put it up 7 halftone steps, which is a perfect fifth, which always matches harmonically with the root. And I changed the filter type so it has more high frequencies in it. And this functions very well as a layer to my first pad sound. And I'm using the exact same pad, so it's harmonically already within the same spectrum. And it's just one way of making most out of the resources that you already have. And right now I'm like, okay. Hello. Hello. Hey. Gonna test out some melody. Sometimes this works. Just wanted to show it. There's an auto shift effect on this track that is currently locked to the scale of C chromatic. Now I'm changing it to E Minor, again, minor by accident. I forgot that I'm working in a major scale. I'm laughing here because it sounds a bit funny. I freeze and flatten to render in that auto shift effect into the audio itself, so it's already pitch corrected, and then I hit convert melody to new MIDI track. This gives me the exact same MIDI now. I deleted the audio, so I can work with the MIDI now, which is kind of a cool feature in Ableton Live. It's cool that it's built in. And sometimes I get some cool little melodies this way. Fit to scale. I'm hitting Option spacebar to play from the playhead instead of from the beginning of the clip. Of course, adjusting some notes here. Now this is something that sometimes works. In this case, all I had was just the pad in terms of melodies and melodics, harmonics. Instead of fiddling around so much, I would have made sure to have a bit more sounds and melodic content before adding my voice on top. Yeah, now I'm trying to make something work with Diva, a different type of synth sound. Quantizing the notes. Trying to do some on-the-fly sound design. Start tweaking a lot. Not happy with the sound that I'm getting at the moment. Trying some arpeggio presets. Somehow still not really satisfied. For some reason also some of the notes are off, so I just delete it. Again, trial and error. You know, you try, see if something works, if something doesn't. Go to the next layer, which has this random chords generator by Mario Nieto. Scale lock to E minor, which is not the correct scale, but I'll fix that in a second. And I'm like, it's major. Cool plugin. Has some built-in randomization. So whenever I play a note, it randomizes the inversion and the velocity. And I'm already on to some kind of a cool chord here. Messing around with the device, but I don't really like the sound of it. Using it for just to test the chords. See, I keep hitting that button. The record capture button. So I'm like, let's load up a piano, and I use Contact for this. Takes a second to load. It's the Niels Frahm Noire piano. That was created in collaboration with Native Instruments. The felt version is pretty cool. So I use that. Already I like the sound. Let's make sure that it's a bit darker sounding using the color knob. And then enable the style to give it some tape. Tape saturation. Yeah, that's the sound that I'm looking for. Just pull up the velocity so it's not that soft. Command J to consolidate the entire clip. Now rearrange the clips so they play in the right order. Consolidate these again. Duplicate. Yeah. adjust the notes accordingly. Random chords generator is fantastic for this type of stuff, man. Look how quick it is to come up with chords. I'm just timing the individual phrases here. Individual notes, I mean. Seeing if I can add some variation here. I like it. New MIDI track. For some reason. Add some reverb to the chords here. Sending it into return channel B and C, which is reverb and delay. Make sure to save. Disabling that second pad layer for now so I can focus more on the melody now. I just felt like it was a bit too bright, not pleasant to listen to 24/7. I have a Razer sequencer loaded on the second MIDI track. Gonna put it to major, E major, and load up a synth. I'm thinking, Diva, okay. What the frick? Put it into a different preset here. Just quickly chuck up something here. Randomize all the parameters of the Razer. We're getting some Ben Böhmer vibes here. Randomizing the octave here. Randomizing everything. I like this sound. Now here's where I started to tweak a lot. Going into different oscillators, so I just cut this part out, to be honest, because I tweaked for way too long. Just went for a different preset anyway. And then suddenly I found a nice bass groove. So I decided to record that bass groove into a new MIDI track by record arming it, selecting Diva, the Diva layer, as the input source, and hitting record. You can see the MIDI is now being recorded from that layer. I only really need a bar because it's a very repetitive sequence. I put it onto the original layer and I delete the Razer because the sequence is already done now. Change some of the notes. Decided to cut those out and loop just a very short little phrase here. Put this layer into the bass channel because it's a bass. Of course, make sure it's side chained to the sidechain trigger, which plays every fourth note. Pitch it down an octave. Actually, pitch it back up an octave. Just double checking the percussion here. Enabling the pad once more. Seeing how it sounds without the chords. You know, just doing some A/B testing here really quick. Vibe. Don't forget to vibe. Looking for some samples in the key of E major, so I type in E major. I like this sound. Why not? Trial and error to see if it fits. Send it into reverb and delay, which is B and C. Return channel B and C. Duplicated that layer, cut the sound. Now I'm looking for different sounds in the key of E major. Just trial and error. Have some fun. You can also go on Splice. I find Splice to be a useful tool. It fits, However, it sounded a bit too cheerful, happy. A bit too, I don't know, fairy tale Wonderland style. Not really my vibe here. You find literally everything here in this folder. I'm looking for that one little sound.
Could you be the one?
I find some kind of a chord progression here. And I'm like, can I make this fit with my existing piano chord progression? Maybe just the end. So I chop out just the end. Put it right underneath the chord. Call it chord extra. Put it at the end of every phrase. Yeah, I like this sound. I create a new audio track and put it there. Just take the first little snippet, make sure that it's set to the right tempo, which is 120 according to the label. I change that from 96 to 120. Put it into reverb and delay. Take out some of the high frequencies to put it into the background more. Put it into my last return channel, which is experimental. So on this experimental track, you can see a frequency echo, which is great for sound design, man. It's a lot of fun. I double time the sound. I like that. I put that there. This sometimes works too, just to drag it from start to finish. However, this can get quite repetitive. And it sounds a bit too fairy tale Wonderland, in my opinion. A bit too happy. But I still like it. For some reason, I'm still vibing. I make sure to reduce the frequency of that second bass layer so it's not too repetitive. Looking for some tom layers just to give the bass a bit more variety, make it less boring. Going to LotusTunes, Yerevan. I know that I have a few cool sounding tom sounds in there, so I just chuck them in. Perfect. Duplicate. Usually I take a bit more time here, but just trying to quickly come up with something here using loops for the sake of this challenge. There we go. 2 tom layers. Sounds good. Now I'm reducing the frequency of the xylophone sound. Looking for some delay. And what type of delay will I choose? It's gonna be echo. Okay. I like echo for longer feedback tails, delay tails. Further reducing the frequency of that xylophone sound. And right now I have a pretty full sounding loop. So I save the project. And now I'm like, what can I do? Set up some extra side chaining. So the bass, at least the bass, is being reduced in volume whenever the kick plays. Create a new MIDI track, MIDI clip for some extra bass notes here. Sub bass. Include the root note a bit more. Some minor changes. Again, I disable the chord and yeah, just the chord. And right now, big step, duplicate the 8-bar loop until the end of my framework that I've set up. So intro to outro. So I at least have a larger canvas to work with. And now I subtract, here's the important part here, I subtract the melodics and the details from the intro. So the drum fills I take away. And all the chordy, harmonic, bleep bloop stuff I take away. The 7th pad layer, the 7ST pad, I take away. So the higher pad layer, at least for the intro. I put an auto filter on the main pad layer on the first one, so I have some time to blend it in. I create an automation, and right after that I also take away the bass, as well as the tom groove. Anything that gives too much energy in the intro. I blend out the hi-hat to see if it works without the hi-hat, but I keep the shaker. Just double checking. Anything that gives away too much complexity for the intro, I take away. But I don't want it to sound too empty, right? So I want to find that balance here. Blend in the pad, extend the loop range to the very end. I got confused here where the sound was coming from, and I forgot to delete that little snippet. Now on the main channel, I have a high pass filter, also known as low cut, which I use to cut out the bass in the intro or create short little phases of tension where the bass is taken out. Quite usual to do for intros. Now I'm thinking where I should bring back the bass. So I bring it in a bit earlier. After 8 bars, always remember to hit Command S to save. I copy the auto filter from the first layer, put it on the second one, make sure to adjust the automation. I try to copy and paste, but that doesn't seem to be working here. Now it works. There we go. Thinking what to do. Copy, paste some of the melodics here to make it interesting. Right. Usually every 4 to 8 bars you want to have some kind of a change, so it's not too boring for the listener, aka for yourself. Adjusting some of the automation on the high pass filter here. And that little break section that I've created. Cooldown section I'm deleting using the command that you see on the screen. This is a ripple delete. For the breakdown, I delete the kick. And I take away the chords for the main. I want to make sure that they come exactly where I want them to come in. Now, I don't like it when I have that many small, tiny clips, so what I do is I consolidate clips and duplicate them again, because it's easier to arrange this way if you don't have so many small, tiny little snippets. Now I'm thinking, how can I arrange the track? Which sections do I need? Which ones do I do not need? According to my default template, I have a few sections that you can see at the very top: main, break, etc. Taking away the kick and ripple deleting the break section here, because I feel like it's getting too long. So I'm gonna create a break earlier here. And when the main section comes back in, I want the focus to be just on the drums and the bass, so I'm deleting some of the melodics here. And I'm like, take away the chord extra. Just deleted it. Didn't like it. Now we just got to make sure that it doesn't sound empty when the drop hits. So what I'm going to do to increase the impact is adjust the percussion layer here. Send it into reverb, return channel B, which is the black hole reverb or the long reverb space. Add some tension before the chorus, aka drop hits. Now I just need to create a bit of a pause here by adjusting the clip lengths. And I think I'm hitting Command here to go off grid. Usually I use the clap as a final impact before the drop hits. Combined with reverb, it sounds good. And I delete the pads because the pads carry a lot of tension, as I see here. But I feel like it's too empty without them, so I automate them into the delay channel here, so they fade into the drop. And I automate them into the experimental Valhalla frequency echo track as well, so it sounds interesting. Yeah, it's more about automating instead of adding more on top. At least I automate before I add more. Sometimes less is more. Fade out the pad and make sure that I bring it back in smoothly using the auto filter here. Adjust some of the automations accordingly. Just adjusting some of the sounds. I don't want to have too much perky detail in the first 8 to 16 bars of the intro, so I just take away that out. That leaves me with more space to add in percussion during the progression of the track. Looking for some new sounds that I can use as a surprise effect in the chorus, aka main section. I like the percussion turned off right before the chorus hits. Adjusting some of the automation on the tops. I like the double kick. Works as a fill here. Da-da-dum. Small, tiny stuff like that, man. That's why I say less is more.
Take me higher now.
Some vocal sample that I found here. Also a bit fairy tale Wonderland. But I still kind of liked it, man. I don't know. This track turned out this way, so I took the vocal here. Sounds good. Why not? Let's see what else we can do with it. High cut. See, I chucked the vocal into like every send. I'm trying to make it as less poppy sounding as possible, as less fairy tale Wonderland-ish as possible. So I stretch the sound, change the warp mode to texture. Makes it a bit more glitchy, you know? Now I decide to chop the sound, mangle the audio a bit more. I'm really trying to make something work with this vocal here. Trying to make it interesting, so I take little snippets here. Dum, 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 dum. This works quite well. Doing some copy pasting here. Adjusting the pitch. A little tweaking. I realized that the pad comes in a bit too intensely, so I crank down the auto filter. Making sure that I have a good placement for the sounds here. it doesn't clash with the vocal, but doesn't come in too late, you know? Reversed it. That sounds cool. Right? It's more about making the most out of what you already have instead of adding more. At least do that first before adding more. For the break section, I just decided to take away all the top end percussion. So no cooldown section here, just straight into the break. You could, of course, kind of tease the break with a cooldown, but I just decide to go full turkey here. Full turkey? Cold turkey. You know, just straight to 0. Full turkey. Okay. Now high pass. Enable that in the build-up section here that I'm creating. I like it when the drums come back in during the build-up, but not fully, just to add a bit more tension and to keep it danceable. Adjusting the reverb to include more of the lows. Still need some tweaking here. Usually this is the most challenging part of the track, the breakdown, build-up, chorus. Once you have that done, your track is 99% finished. I copy the main section, I paste it here for the vocal. Copy the intro. I try to paste it here, but it's not pasting, so I copy it again. And I paste it again. This time it worked. For the outro, you want to take away the detailed stuff, you know? You want to indicate that the track is ending. I copy the vocal and I paste it exactly the way it is. Yeah, having that pre-drop phrase, either a vocal or a synth or whatever it is, really helps to increase the impact on the drop. I'm trying to give it a bit more flavor here, make it different than the first chorus. Always remember to stretch. Just give your second drop a bit more, just a tiny touch, even if it's just a little bit. Enabling the saturator here, the limiter. You can see that the clap is really peeking into the limiter. So I didn't fully realize that here, but I'm trying to compensate with the glue compressor that I have set on my drum bus. So all my drums go into this drum bus. And there's an additional drum bus with kick track here that I have drum bus loaded onto. And roar. Yeah, just to give it a bit of extra saturation, compression, drive, whatever you may call it. I don't like the drum bus, so I end up deleting it. The drum bus effect. Making sure to change the volume here on some of the tracks, just some rough mixing. Utility, bass mono. Doing some EQ, just making sure that we have no low end in the tops. Percussion. A bit more low end in the percussion because there's a tom, but still low cutting it. And at this point, it would make sense to take a break, you know, to give my ears a bit of a space to listen to the track later. But instead, I try to go for a drum bus, mess with the settings here. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Probably should have used it a bit earlier in the drum creation process, but hey. Cutting out some of the frequencies, low end stuff and some of the sounds that I don't want. For example, this acoustic layer. I always mix while I produce. Just more of a flowy experience for me. Hitting Option U to collapse all the tracks here. Trackado. Always save. Yeah, just giving it a quick listen here, checking if I need anything else. Enabling limiter saturation again. I like the drums here, but I don't like the drum bus. For some reason I'm kind of skeptical about it. Checking if the kick needs to be louder or quieter. Plus 2 dB, minus 2 dB difference. Fine tweaking, just some tweaking. Making sure that I don't have that many small, tiny MIDI clips. So I consolidate them. Doing a bit of a dance here. Susalicious. Organizing the session so I don't have any empty clips or tracks. Now using right click at the top, I'm adding locators. These are like notes for me. Track needs more ear candy and tiny details. Just some tiny little nuances and melodic content. You know, this is something that I do. Yeah, that I do after the core structure of the track is done. Sometimes during, depends, man. Adding that tiny kick variation. Bup, bup, bup. Taking away. Yeah. Give the kick some fill. In the breakdown, I feel like I need some new stuff, some atmospheres. It's always nice to have at least one new atmospheric element come in the break, rather than having your chords be the only focus and the melody that you already have. Yeah, I wanted to make a note here on the synths that they sound kind of empty, but I ended up just leaving that out because I already have the note where it says put new atmosphere here. Looking for a transition to make the transition into the break a bit more smooth. This one sounds good. Put it into the effects channel. Adjust some of the automation on the higher pad layer. Adjust the transition placement here. I don't need the warping. Take away the fills here. Really put the focus on just the melodic stuff, the atmosphere. Adjust, fine tune. I don't like how the drums come in all of a sudden. So I take an auto filter, put it onto the track, the group, Chord Tops group, and I automate them in. I accidentally forget to adjust the automation so that the tracks you see on the left are not filtered down. But that doesn't matter, I corrected it in the official template. Now it's just vibing time. Listen to your track over and over in different scenarios. Take breaks. Export the track, upload it to SoundCloud as private, and listen to it in your car or on your laptop speaker or whatever, headphones. But definitely take a break. At this point, I would take a break because my ear is already too adapted to the sounds. But what do? I dance. Important, man. It's important. You know, when we're into creating our music, we have to also enjoy it. You know, create some space to enjoy our tracks. More vocal chops, yeah. I like the vocal chops. I feel like I need them more throughout the track, so I create another note. And oftentimes you'll get these ideas when you take some space, like take a break and then listen to your track again. But at this point, I don't want to add anything that makes the track feel entirely different or make any massive change to it. I want to keep it the way it is. The vibe is already established. This is what the track wants to sound like, you know? Making any drastic changes to it won't really change anything. The track has been called to sound this way, and I do not try to add anything that changes the complete vibe of it. Maybe some tiny little ear candy detail, try to add those vocal chops a bit more throughout the track, adjust some of the side chaining settings. Yeah. Collect all and save. So all of the sounds are bundled within the folder. And when you readjust your libraries, what the heck? When you readjust your libraries and move the location, collect all and save will still keep all the sounds. So yeah, thanks so much, guys. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like and subscribe. Remember, my default template that I used in this video, you can grab it for free. The full entire project file you can grab from my Patreon page, and the sounds you can find on LotusTunes.com. I will see you in the next video. Peace.